and spending time with animals is really important, and I think going to hospital is far less, infections are far less, etc. So something in the mud. So third thing, I'm going to try and race through this a bit more. Eating fresh, raw and organic. I won't go into too much detail because I think most of you will be absolutely convinced that food is part of the immune system. But a lovely couple of examples. We know about vitamin C and scurvy. So we know that just one vitamin deficiency can kill you. Okay, and that's just one vitamin. And I've got one up there. The WHO found that as they were giving vitamin A with the measles vaccine, for example, the mortality reduced by 23%. That's just from one little tiny vitamin, which is amazing. And we also know that, so we know that vitamin A reduces measles by 50%. That's why they administer it then in the developing world. And we had a lovely talk by Dr. Kushmar last month, 2 months ago, and she told us that the folic acid in green vegetables, which I believe would be in broccoli. I didn't have any leafy greens, but I think greens are probably a really good way of getting folic acid. She said that the folic acid actually regulates our genes, our epigenetics, because there's something in the folic acid that switches off the disease gene. So if you might remember, I said earlier that only 5% of our disease is purely genetic. So most of it is experience and environment and all those other things. So I thought that was quite exciting, that if you've got a particular gene or genetic tendency in your family, folic acid, lots of leafy green vegetables will really do you some great good. And Trevor Gunn, he's also an ex-biochemist, like Kushmark was. He told us that an organic tomato, for example, which I have here, they are, I wanted to find a really big juicy one, because the tomato has had to fend for itself, then it's developed its own immune system, and it hasn't died and withered. It didn't have any sprays or any vaccines, but it's still alive and it's with us today. And if you eat that tomato, it passes on its innate immunity to you, which I thought was just amazing. So it may not have many more nutrients than a normal tomato, but it's passing on a memory of being able to fight disease for you, which I thought was fantastic. And then breast milk, of course. I mean, we're told a lot about breast milk, but there's a lot of the detail that is not passed on because we don't want to sort of offend mothers that couldn't feed or mixed feed. But I think in this environment, you know, I could tell you a few amazing things. For example, there's a fatty substance called IgA in the breast milk, and it lines the stomach of the baby, and the baby's stomach is porous because, as you know, it hasn't been used. It's just a porous entity, and you don't want anything to go through that stomach, otherwise it will go into the blood. And the blood-brain barrier is not starting to be developed until about 6 months. So it seals that up, stopping anything going through. And another interesting is when a mother meets a new antigen in the environment, within 40 minutes she makes antibodies to it to feed her baby. So if you're going on holiday or you're going to a new situation and the mother comes into contact with something, the mother can make the antibodies to it for the next feed, which is amazing. And then another foods that really need to mention are fermented foods. Live cultures really strengthen the gut, like, for example, a natural yoghurt. They've really tried to sell the Yakult drinks, but then you have a lot of milk and sugar and other additives with that. But it's basically the live cultures. You know, you might have heard of, in Germany, they have a lot of sauerkraut. Well, they also have a lot of less infection. Their guts are really, really, really strong. I guess they drink a lot of beer. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And another mention should be sugar. Most dietitians in hospitals, who are quite mainstream, are still sitting on the fence on sugar. But most other holistic practitioners would say that sugar really does depress the immune system. So especially if you're feeling unwell, if you are unwell, don't go crazy on the sugar. And then the other thing we should mention is genetically modified food. They're finding that it's transferring these genetically modified genes to the consumer, and that might be something that you don't want. So really be very careful with what you're buying, because not everything is labelled as such, as, you know, ask your supermarkets, for example. And it's mostly the meat products in England that you don't have to label to ask, you know, to tell the customer whether they've been fed with genetically modified food. So we know that there's links between some cancers and some foods. That's pretty much accepted now, although 20 years ago it really wasn't. So there's many, many things that are moving on. So it's, you know, it's absolutely accepted that fresh fruit and vegetables can reduce the chances of cancer. And also it's accepted that red meats will increase your risk of certain cancers as well. And there's many other things in between that. So that's food. Now on to water. We know that we're mostly water. We know that we have to drink water. We know that when we drink other drinks, our body needs water to dilute what we've just drunk. So pure water is really the way to go. But it's really hard. When I was trying to look up all the different water filters that you can get, it's really an unknown quantity which one is best. So I emailed somebody called Andreas Moritz. He's a sort of a very well-known natural health practitioner on water. He writes a lot about water. And he said that water is involved in so many biochemical processes in the body that it's absolutely essential to us, to our immune system. But he said it's not easy to find the perfect system because of the fine line between cleaning the water and destroying it. So I have got a list here at the end if anyone's interested. And each water filter does something slightly different. None of them filter out all the toxins, so some will do antibiotics, some will do the progesterone in the pill, others won't, but some of them take out a lot of the natural minerals in the water, and some people are worried about that. So it's not an exact science at the moment in terms of water filters, but suffice to say, water's key. Excuse me. Okay, we're on to number 5, so we're halfway through, and then you can ask some questions. Looking at sleep, this is a real key one for me because I just can't get off my computer. There's just so many emails, so many things to do, and if I get to bed by 11, I just feel like I want to pat myself on the back. If I go to bed at 10, I know that's fantastic for me, and I don't know how many years I could keep going, going to bed at midnight. And as I was researching this, I read that less than 6 hours sleep or frequently disruptive sleep constantly can lead to a very high risk of heart disease. It's up to 50% increased risk of heart disease, and that's really, really high. So obviously we've got disruptive sleep when we've got children, and that can go on for several years. So it's a balance, and it's knowing that hopefully when you have your children, you're young enough to pull through that stage. But it's really, really, sleep is really important. We had a lady called Narina, PhD, that her whole area is sleep, and she came to talk to us. And she said that she emphasises the quality of sleep, not just the amount, but the quality. Nutrition, exercise, clean sheets, sufficient oxygen circulating, your sleep routine, meditation, relaxation, etc. All of those things will give you a better quality sleep. Also, it's wise looking at where you sleep, and we'll come on to sort of electromagnetic stress a bit later, but it's really important to think about your bed, and there's lots of trains of thought that are looking at why it would not be good to sleep on a metal bed with metal springs. And in Poland they know this already, they don't have any springs in their mattresses, and in Germany the same, but we think that pocket sprung mattresses are the best, But there's something to do with creating a magnetism that is just slightly too high for your cells to repair, detox and degenerate overnight. So we'll look at that in later. Now, exercise. I wish it wasn't me talking about exercise. My husband swam the Thames yesterday, he did really well, and I just chugged along with a handmade flag. But anyway, I can tell you, because a friend of mine is she wins lots of world medals in swimming, and she confirmed that exercise is very good for you. The metabolism is raised, which means that the body can detox so much more efficiently. Your organs are strengthened, your red blood cells increase, your blood sugars and your hormones are regulated, and the lymph system under your arm, which doesn't have its own movement, you actually need to move it. All of these things are strengthened with exercise. Trampolines are fantastic for kids. Yoga, Pilates, meditation, of course, excellent. And there's so many studies to show that exercise is good for you. So I'm not going to go into detail, but just so you know that there's so many things in the exercise that will reduce your resistance to disease. And this whole talk is all about you understanding that you can take control more of your own body and make it less likely that you're going to be sick, and hopefully less likely to need some of these products that may give you problems. Number 7, keeping good company and laughter. A study in Australia followed 1,500 older people for 10 years, and they found that those who had the larger network of friends